Hi everyone, how are you doing? So this is your reminder today to just keep going. Now, I was in London this week at a positive psychology event, and this has put a fire in my belly because it has reminded me of why I am here, what I am here to do, and how over the last 10 years since studying positive psychology, I have just kept going, kept showing up, kept following what lit me up and putting one foot in front of the other. And I was in London reflecting and looking back over the last 10 years and just going, wow, how far have I come over the last 10 years? So 10 years ago, I used to have extreme anxiety. I was severely unhappy in the relationship I was in. I was unhappy in the job that I was in. And over the last 10 years, I have aligned my relationship. I've met my soulmate. I got my dream, in the last 10 years, I got my dream career in HR. I was doing it. I was actually doing my dream career. I worked my way up the ladder. I was doing my dream career in HR. That was not enough for me. That was not enough because I knew my reach was global and I knew I wanted to help more people. I knew my mission was to help more people across the whole world. And in that time, in the last 10 years, I also left my corporate job and moved fully into my business. So it was amazing being in London this week and just going, oh my God, I've come so far. So I want to share this love and share this message with you. I'm just coming out of kind of my recharge time because I am highly sensitive, I am autistic, and being in London was quite full on this week. So I have had to take it really slowly and gently this week and kind of slowly move myself back into my work, back into my client calls. But it really gave me that spark within me. And I want to inspire that spark within you of just how much you can achieve when something lights you up and you follow it. So as I was in London and I was walking through Kensington on Tuesday, the day after the event, and I was just reflecting on this. And I remember that day so clearly 10 years ago where I felt so broken. I felt so lost. I felt like there wasn't a way forward. I felt like, is this it for me? Like, is this my life? Like, what is the effing point? I don't know if I can swear on here. What is the effing point? Like, what is the point? Is this my life? Is this really it? I remember that feeling. I remember feeling there must be more to life. A bit like Belle in Beauty and the Beast, where she like runs up in those fields and goes, there must be more than this provincial life. Like, that was how I felt, like, as a child, as an adult. Like, there must be more, this can't be my life. I can't, wake up, push through 9 to 5, I go to work when it's dark, I come home when it's dark. Weekend, I don't have a social life because I'm just so burnt out from that Monday to Friday, that 9 to 5, that job that I hate. There has to be more than this. And that was how I felt that day. And when I went into that course to study positive psychology in London that day, 10 years ago, everything, thank you so much for the feedback on my podcast. I really appreciate it. Everything shifted and changed for me that day. So it was just under 10 years ago. It was June 2014. And my friend who was in Sydney at the time, so positive psychology is like spread like wildfire across Australia, but the UK has been so slow to catch up. And she came over to run the positive psychology course. I was one of the first 6 people in the UK to study positive psychology. This is how long ago this was. There's now like hundreds of us. And after that first day of the course and the things that I learned, I went home that night and I phoned my mum and I cried my eyes out. And she was like, what's wrong? Are you like, you're not okay? Something happened? And I was like, I'm crying because I'm happy. I'm crying because I'm deeply emotional and happy. because after just one day, I can feel how this stuff is changing my life. After one day, I was like, I can just feel like everything is going to be different from this moment onwards. I can feel it. And I'm in the middle of central London, and it is incredibly overwhelming and noisy and stimulating, and I'm very highly sensitive. Yet I feel this groundedness, this centeredness, this inner calm, and this sense of hope and optimism that I've not had since I was very young, very, very young. I think I always had this feeling of, let me know if this resonates with you, I always had this feeling of like, I know there's more out there. I think when I was quite little, I was very, very imaginative. And then I started school and I was like, ew, is this it? Like, school for me was really icky. I was like, yuck, this is gross. I don't even know how they got away with this, but when I went to school, we had to do PE in our underwear. And I remember sitting on the cold, hard floor of our school hall in my underwear, the school hall that people had been in and out of all day, and there was grit on the floor from their shoes. It was so dirty and so disgusting, and I was forced to sit on that floor in my underwear. It was just disgusting. So that was the start of my school life. And I always felt this at school. I always felt like there must be more than this. Like, these people around me, they just don't give a shit. Like, they don't want much for their lives. There has to be more than this. I'm not like these people. They don't get me. But school like pushed me down and kept me in that box for many, many, many years. When I was 15, I very much felt like I was second best. So I was like the B grade student. Look at this lovely green matcha. I haven't had matcha for ages. And I decided I was going to have matcha today. It's very dark green. So I was always like the B grade student. I always felt like, it was always second best, B grade student. I couldn't get the boyfriend that I wanted when I was in my teenage years. I had to have like the second best boys. I used to date boys that were at the school in the next town, because the boys that were where I lived weren't interested in me. So it was always like this feeling of second best. I was also attracted to a girl at my school. But for some reason, like, I had a friend who was a boy and he was gay, and that was like completely accepted. But for some reason, like, me being attracted to a girl was not acceptable. So I also really shut that part of myself down. So I was obviously bisexual. I was very driven, very motivated, felt like I didn't fit in, had these amazing gifts, but was shutting them all down. Then I got a bit of a glimmer of hope of this at sixth form, because sixth form gave me freedom and it brought me psychology. So, and you'll laugh when I tell you what led me to psychology, what led me to the work I do now, what led me to studying. It was sex. Sex was the reason. So I remember going around sixth form colleges looking at where I could study psychology. And I remember going up to this stand where there was a boy there who was at this sixth form college, and he was sharing all about Freud and the brain and what they were learning in psychology. And they obviously like used this as a way to kind of, get students interested. But they were talking about Freud and they were talking about sex. And the word sex caught my eye. And I was like, what is that over there? I need to go look. So I went over there, I started chatting to this guy, and I was like, wow, like, this is my thing. I've been struggling all these years at school of trying to fit in and just being the B grade student and, I was kind of creative, but then I kind of wasn't, and I wasn't like overly academic. It was like, where do I fit in? Where is my thing? And then I found this guy, and I was like, right, this is what I need to study. So I studied psychology for my A-level, and I soon got an A. So the B grade student was no more. I got an A, and it was like, wow, okay, I can do this stuff. And I found it really easy. I found revising for my exams really easy, because I was so curious about how the brain worked, and that curiosity about the Freud part and the sex that drew me in. It was like, just fascinated me so much, and it drew me into, I want to understand more about people and the human psyche. I felt my whole entire life that I've not fitted in. This is my thing. So I studied psychology. I got it for my A-level. I went on to study it for my degree as well. I loved every moment of my degree. I did it with the OU, so I broke out of the boxes and limitations. I didn't go to university. I did it all part-time. But then I reached this point in my life again where I felt stuck. So I had all of this knowledge about psychology and what makes people tick. And I was doing a job at the time that was in financial services, and I was like, how do these come together? Like, how do I, like, I'm so curious and I love this and I've studied this and this is my thing, but I'm doing this thing over here to bring me money because I left home quite young and bought a house and a car and travelled and all of those things. So I was very independent and I needed that money. I needed that job to bring me money. And over here, I had all of my skills, and it was like, how do I bring these together? How do I bring together this fire, this passion in me, and this way to make money? So what I did is I let that fire in me keep going. And this is your confirmation if you're watching this. And this is what I tuned back into in London this week, was I allowed that fire within me, that fiery sense of like, yes, this is my thing, like this is me. I let that carry me through. So each step of the way, I followed that lit up feeling in my body, and I followed where that took me. And in 2014, that took me to studying positive psychology in London. So this is what led to that point of this journey. And a friend of mine said to me, you love psychology, you love emotional intelligence. Your next step is going to be positive psychology because it is the latest science and research around this area. A lot of like the organisations at the time were using like 1970s research, and we were like, no, like there's some latest stuff here, and it's all within positive psychology. The magic is in positive psychology. So that day in London, this is why I felt it started to shift and change my life, because not only has it changed my life in terms of like the application of the tools to my life, but the way I can use those tools with others. And this is ultimately then what led to me running my business, because I was like, okay, how do I join these two? There's part of me over here that's got like this passion and this like deep interest, like special interest. It is a special autistic special interest in like how people tick, what makes people tick. And then over here, how do I make money and how do I bring in money? Because I desire to be independent, and I'd left home young, and I had this desire to create this career for myself. And then positive psychology was what joined the two. So before long, I was working in HR and I was doing my dream job. I was training and coaching, and that was my dream job. That was where I wanted to get to. I worked my way up the corporate ladder, and I was training, I was coaching, I was using positive psychology in that. I was training positive psychology all around the UK. I was training in positive leadership, how the managers and leaders in those organisations could use positive psychology to have high-performing teams. And that happened. Their teams' performances, those leaders that took on those positive psychology principles, those leaders' teams, their performance and their financial performance, this links back to the bottom line, skyrocketed. They literally made more money in the business. when they had positive psychology principles in place. And I found this now in my work as a coach with the entrepreneurs and leaders that I work with. Same thing happens time and time again. When they bring positive psychology practices in, they impact on the bottom line. They actually bring in more money. And it all makes sense when you understand how the brain works. So when we follow what lights us up, when you follow what lights you up, and let me know in comments what lights you the hell up that you just absolutely love doing, because when you follow that, you light up the world. Others follow you. They follow you, and that lights them up, and they start to follow what lights them up too. And this is what I found, like step by step of the way over these last 10 years. And this is what I was reflecting on in London, like how I followed that spark of like, this feels different. I know my life can be different, and I'm going to follow this spark within me every single step of the way. Then it lights up others. Others feel that energy. They see that in you. They see you lit up, and will follow you every step of the way. And that helps them to follow their own path, okay? So after several years, so within this 10-year journey, like if you look at it from 2014 to now, I just can't believe what I've done. Like, it was small steps, but I got my dream career in HR. I left that dream career in HR to set up my business. And I then moved into working with other businesses around the UK, other individuals around the UK, running positive psychology programs, bringing in the energy work as well. So this has been a key thing for me. And this is what shifted and changed for me in lockdown as well. It was like, okay, like I can bring together this neuroscience and this energy. Of course, Valued Property Services. I don't know what your actual name is, but if you pop your name, then I can say, like, yeah, definitely. Pop me a message or comment on one of my videos, and I can pop you a message. You can head to the link in my bio, where you can get my free course as well. Audrey, hi Audrey, thank you. Yeah, Audrey. So yeah, pop me a message or comment on one of my videos, or go get my free course. And we can chat, absolutely. And this is really interesting that Audrey says about a period of change, because this is what I was doing on Monday. So in London on Monday, I was with 3 positive psychology experts from around the world, and we were having a conversation at this event on how positive psychology creates change and innovation. So let's speak to that, because let's speak to that in real time, because Audrey's going through that right now. So why does positive psychology help with change and innovation? Not only does it help with change and innovation, it creates human flourishing in all areas of our lives and our businesses. So positive psychology is not just about being happy all the time. So yeah, great, we all want to feel happy, like we all want to feel joyful, like we all want to look at like what we're grateful for and things like that, which is a really, gratitude, one of the really important practices. But it's what it does in the brain. And this was mind-blowing for me. So positive emotions are actually neurochemicals in the brain. They are brain fuel. So things like dopamine, serotonin, for example. What they do is they light up the regions of the brain needed for us to be more creative, to be more productive, and they shut down our fight or flight center, our amygdala, that bit of the part of the brain responsible for fight or flight. So because our brains are so threat focused, which is also very interesting that someone has posted about what's going on in the world right now, because that is the way our brains are focused on, like, where is the threat, what is wrong right now. But we need to flip this on its head, and this shifts and changes everything with what is right, and how do we build on what is right? How do we find more joy in our everyday? Because finding more joy, using our strengths, this lights up those brain regions for innovation, creativity, productivity, flow, focus. And so this is why, as I mentioned earlier, this stuff has an impact on the bottom line. I talk about this in my TEDx. Sean Achor found this stuff actually impacts on the ability for a business to make more sales. Like, it even impacts the bottom line. So if you're not like a feeler person like me, and you're like, yeah, right, yeah, it feels good, but like, show me the data. It's actually been shown this stuff brings in more sales in businesses. So positive psychology is also your route to more abundance as well. Like, this is not some fake, happy, clappy, smiley faces, because of course we have positive and negative emotions. So the other thing I love about this concept is it honors both. And if we are experiencing more negative emotions, this is where tools like mindfulness come in, and shadow work, and we can kind of deeply go into and look at what those negative emotions are telling us, whilst at the same time leveraging the up and having all these amazing benefits. So the reason positive psychology creates change and innovation, which is what the world experts, the world leaders at the event on Monday that I was at, were talking about, is because of these amazing changes in the brain. It's literally giving the brain fuel. So if you think about like a business or a person, like someone that wants to change, their brains are on the back foot. The brain is looking for like, what's wrong? This is going to be different. This feels unsafe. So the more we can flood them with positive emotion through daily practices, through what creates joy in their environment. Like if you look right here, like I've got this plant, like huge plant right next to me. It's like I'm in the jungle. Like, this brings me joy, seeing my plants, seeing my crystals that I have on my windowsill, okay? Like, what can we do to facilitate a positive environment that creates and sparks that joy? So this is why positive psychology, if you're going to do any type of, if you're in a business and you want to do any type of innovation and change, positive psychology is what the research is telling us you need to have. If you're going through any type of change in your life, positive psychology is that underlying tool that you need to have. So this is why I was in London on Monday, because I was at that event with the world leaders, and my matcha is getting cold. So this is why I was in London, and this was my amazing awareness of what had shifted and changed for me in the last 10 years. Like, if you'd have gone back to, it was 5 years ago I did a TEDx. So if you'd have even gone back to that version of me in London in 2014 and said, in 5 years you're going to do a TEDx, she would have said, fuck off. I don't think so. You have a lot of anxiety. You have a lot of social anxiety. There's no way. But yes way, I did do it. I got on that stage in 2019. And now, 5 years later, I'm divorced. I've now met my soulmate. I now run my own business. I work with absolutely incredible people all around the world. And I had my dream career in HR, and I left it. I left it because I knew there was so much more, and I was here to have even bigger impact on the world. So when we look back how far we have come, I think you'll be so surprised at how far you can go in the next 10 years. Like, if I asked you to think about where are you going to be in 10 years, you'd probably tell me where you're going to be in 2 years, realistically, because we don't think that expansively, because we are very past focused as humans. Because again, that's just how our brains are wired, of like, was this thing safe? Was this thing safe? No, okay, I won't do this again. I might do this differently. Like, that's how we're wired. But we have to flip the script on that and go, what have I achieved over the last 10 years? And then you're like, wow. Like, I know for me, I'm like, wow, Jesus, like, I can't believe I've achieved that in 10 years. So what could I achieve in 10 years from now? Like, it blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. So when you look back and when you realise that when you follow what lights you up and you just keep going, what shifts and changes for you. Like, this stuff is just mind-blowing. So as I've come out of my recharge time this week after being in London, and I've taken things really slowly this week. Yeah, reach out to me, Audrey. Have a great day. Thank you for joining. So as I've been reflecting and recharging this week, I've just been reflecting on this. Like, when you follow what lights you up, what is you, what is truly you, rather than trying to fit in with some box or what someone else is doing. Like, even with my autism diagnosis, right? That in itself is a box. Because I could have said, and I'm not going to lie, there was a part of me that thought this. If I go to London on Monday, it was like, remember, you're autistic. So if you go to London on Monday, you're going to get really overwhelmed and burnt out. Is that really a good idea? Is that really what you want to do? And then I was like, yeah, it is what I want to do. Fuck that shit. Like, I'm doing this. I'm going to London. But I had to really plan around that. So a quiet weekend before it, I stayed in a hotel after the event. I got the train home when the train was quiet. And then I've had a really slow week. I've reduced my amount of client calls this week. I've not set an alarm in the mornings. I've just got up when I needed to get up. So I've taken this week really slow and nourishing. But I followed what lit me up. But we're not doing it in like a pushy way. My lights just turned off. We're not doing it in a pushy way. We're not doing it in a like, I must do this thing now. Because that's the old paradigm. Like, a lot of us have done that, done there, done that, been there, got the t-shirt, got the hat, been in burnout. Yeah, got the burnout t-shirt. But we're not here to do this anymore. And this new paradigm is not about this. It's not about this thing lights me up and I'm going to push and hustle until I get that thing. The last 10 years for me have been slowly, step by step by step. And there are times in the last 10 years where I was rock bottom. When I was going through my divorce and I had nowhere to live, I had to leave. I had to leave him. I had to leave the home that I owned. And I left and I let almost everything go. I had nothing. There's been times where I've been rock bottom. Absolute rock bottom in the last 10 years. And there's been times where I've been on stage at TEDx. I've been on several stages, several online stages, online conferences. So there's been ups and there's been downs. But when I look back over the last 10 years, following what lights me up has led the way. So you only need to just follow that and take those small steps and nourish and care for yourself along the way. Like I shared with you, when I left my marriage and I had nothing, and I was trying to find somewhere to live, I had to take things really slow, really slow. I was really poorly. Like, shortly after that happened, I was really poorly. And I had to really nourish and nurture myself. I didn't speak to my family for a little bit around that time. So I had to chose to think about how I nurture myself through that time, how I mother myself. And this was in lockdown as well. I had no contact with anyone. How do I nurture myself through this? So there'll be times where you need that deeper nurture. So as I've said, like the last 10 years, I had those ups, I had those downs. But when I look back, all I did was just follow what lights me up, what feels joyful, what feels nourishing, what feels expansive. And when you follow those things, everything will shift and change for you because you end up on your path. You end up on your purpose. And I see this a lot with my clients. Like, you have your unique path here on this planet. You have that thing that lights you up. You have that thing that you are here to do. You have that big vision, that dream, that goal. But it's not about pushing to get there. It's just about step by step of the way. Okay, body, how are you feeling today? Do you need some more self-care today? What can we do today? What actions do we need to take today? how can we do them in a really nourishing way? So I've been sat here with I've got a matcha now. I had a what was it called? Chicory root coffee earlier. I was wrapped up in a blanket in my Oodie, and I was doing admin for my business. So it's not like these small steps that we take. It can also be like, how do we take them as well? How do we take them in a way that feels nourishing for us? So for me with my autism, I have a lot of like sensory overwhelm. I need a lot of like coziness. A lot of coziness, you know, I'm like giving myself a cuddle as I'm talking to you. Because the way that we do things is really important as well, like how we show up in a way that is nurturing. Like what would feel nourishing and nurturing for you today, and how can you show up from that space? And this is what changes and shifts everything. Because it's not this pushy old paradigm of I push through and then I rest. You know, as I said, we've all got the burnout t-shirt and hat. We've all had the burnout t-shirt and hat. I nearly said shit. And it is not a badge of honour. Like, we know that is old paradigm. That is old paradigm. The world is still catching up as she moves into 5D, but that is all old paradigm stuff. Because you are here to take that nurtured, nourished action and start from that place, not the pushy hustle. Because what happens is when we get into pushy hustle, we push, then we burn out, then we have to just hide. Like, I used to call this my recharge time. So this week was a fine example of how I've got this balance back. So I went to London on Monday, and yes, I was very tired on Tuesday, and I was a bit burnt out on Tuesday because I stayed overnight. Old me would have gone, oh my God, I'm so burnt out by London. Why did I do this to myself? I must immediately like cancel all my clients this week. I'm going to have to stay in bed. I'm going to have to hide. Oh no, my work is messed up this week. What am I going to do? Old paradigm. New paradigm, new me this week was like, okay, what can I plan in advance to give myself some space on Wednesday because I know I'm going to be tired? Right, I'm on the train home from London. What would make me feel nourished right now? Okay, I'll have a cup of tea. That would make me feel good. When I was in London, it was like, what would make me feel good? And it was like, okay, I want to walk. I don't want to get on the tube. I want to walk by the Thames, and I'm going to stop at some coffee places. There is a coffee place called Frequency Coffee, and just give them a little shout out in case anyone has been there. It was on the banks of the Thames, and I was like, oh, Frequency Coffee, like a name like that, it's going to be a good place. And I went in and it was so calm, and the waitress like really gently made my coffee and just placed it on the side. I was like, yes. So it's not about like, and especially when you're, you know, neurodiverse or we're sensitive, we might think, oh, we can't do certain things. It's not about like not doing it and getting in that old paradigm around that. It's like, how do I do it in a way that works for me? So I had a really slow, nurtured wander around London. I didn't stay at the event until the end. They were doing networking. I just had a couple of conversations and left. Like, that's far too unstructured for me, my brain. I cozied up in my hotel afterwards. And then the next day I had a really slow day of just like wandering, went to some museums, wandered through, went to the train, had a really cozy train home, had a bath when I got home. And then I did have a couple of client calls this week, but I've been doing them in a really nurtured, nourished way. So it's about how you continue to show up in a way that is nurturing and nourishing for you. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you've got any questions, but this is just your reminder that if you follow what lights you up every step of the way, keep getting invites to go live with people, thank you, but not today. If you follow what lights you up every single step of the way, your life will shift and will change beyond imaginable. And that was what being in London this week reminded me of. It was like, yes, this is when my life started to shift, started to change, and I overcame that extreme extreme anxiety that I had where I couldn't even speak to 5 people in a work meeting, let alone do my TEDx. So it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. Matcha is now cold. It's about how you're going to show up for yourself. Day by day, like what feels aligned for you, what feels nourishing for you. So let me know in comments. What feels aligned for you today? What are the actions that you've got to do today? And how can you do them in a way that is nurturing, in a way that is nourishing? I've got my blanket here. Like, how can you show up today in a nurtured and nourishing way? Sometimes for me, it's just having a cup of tea in my hand because it makes me feel cozy and warm. So this is how you achieve those big dreams and goals. You have them in mind, and then step by step you walk the path towards them in a way that is nurturing and nourishing for you. So any questions, let me know. I'm going to go and walk on the beach now and do some more nurturing for myself. But thank you to everyone who joined me live today. I appreciate your joining and watching and your questions. And I will speak to you all soon. Bye for now.